Hello and welcome back to Holt Hanley Weather. In this video, we're going to take a look at the major snowstorm that could hit the Northeast next week. Now I'm going to be straight up with you. This isn't going to be like your basic forecast video. We're really going to dive into the science behind storm development. So if that's not your thing, then you're probably not going to like this video very much. So diving into my screen here, you can see this is a major storm on the way for next Thursday for the Northeast. Now, right now, the heaviest snowfall rates in the double digits, those are showing up farther north, kind of up into Canada. But the trend recently is that these lows are starting to pull south as the forecast models progress. That happened with Winter Storm Mabel, where early on it was showing up like this, where Northeast wasn't getting that much. And then within a few forecast runs, major snow was showing up for the Northeast, and then it ended up happening. So I'm thinking that red blob where you see 10 to 12, maybe a foot, 2 feet of snow, I think that's going to move into the Northeast with this one. And let's dive into why. So the first thing I like to do when looking at future storms and just the big picture of weather in general is to look at it on the big scale. So this is right now, you can see there's a cutoff low off of Southern California, and cold air is basically covering the entire northeast portions of the country. Basically, everything from North Dakota down to South Carolina has a nice cold blob of Arctic air over it, and that's going to persist through Saturday and Sunday. Well, let's take a look at what happens to this cutoff low off Southern California as we progress through the weekend. Well, it moves into areas like North Texas, Oklahoma area, and that's going to be bringing in some warm air from the Gulf of Mexico, which really brings some moisture and energy into this system. But as you'll see in a second, this isn't the one that's going to lead to the big snowstorm for the Northeast. That one pushes up and hits on Tuesday. It's going to bring some rain, maybe a little snow to the Northeast, but as you'll see in a minute when we look at the pressure levels with that one, that's a pretty weak storm. The really good one is this big trough moving through kind of Nebraska area on Tuesday morning. That's bringing this cold Arctic air all the way down into Texas, and this is what you would call a very meridional trough. Meridional, if you don't know, is when the isobars, lines of constant pressure, are going very far north to south. The opposite of that is zonal, where the isobars are just kind of flat across the country. That typically means not very exciting weather. Very meridional, very exciting weather. And as you can see here, basically from Texas to New Mexico, it's almost straight down. That's about as intense as you'll ever see it. And the other key feature with this is one of my favorite things to look at on pressure maps like this. If the isobars, again, the lines of constant pressure, are closer together on the western side of the trough, that means the storm is going to get stronger. If, let's say, the isobars are closer on the right side of the trough, that means that this big trough is going to move north and it's going to weaken. When you see them close on the left side, that means it's going to continue to dig. Those pressure levels will go from like 1,000 millibars down to 990, as you'll see, down to 980. And this trough is just going to keep getting deeper and deeper and continue to strengthen as it moves through. Here, right there, you can see they are really close. Off to the west of Texas, those isobars are extremely close. And if you look at the winds on the right side of this trough, they're bringing in that warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico. That, again, is going to bring in a lot of moisture and energy to further drive this trough. And then that's going to move up, and it's going to strengthen and hit the Northeast at about Thursday afternoon into Friday morning. Again, this is pretty far off. This is basically a week in advance, so these forecast models will change. But the overall idea that a storm will be hitting at this time is probably going to stay the same. So that's the first thing that's going to lead to this storm, this major storm, and the double digit, maybe over a foot of snowfall. It's those close isobars on the left side of the trough that really lead to trough development. Two major things that lead to storm development, well, they both have to do with uplift. If you think about it, if you get a lot of vertical uplift, you're going to create clouds, and then with that moisture from the Gulf, those clouds are going to have a lot of water in them, and that's going to fall out. If it's cold enough, you get a lot of snow, as we should be seeing next week. But the two main things that lead to that uplift are warm air moving into a region and vorticity, positive vorticity moving into a region. Warm air, pretty self-explanatory. If it moves in, that warm air is going to move up and create clouds. Vorticity, it sounds like a really fancy, sciencey word, but it's really not that hard to understand. If winds are just going straight, there's zero vorticity. If the winds are curving, that's vorticity. And positive vorticity is when they're curving like a hurricane or a cyclone. Think about that. They have counterclockwise flow. I'm backwards in these videos, so it probably looks like that to you. They have counterclockwise flow, and that leads to rising motion. It's pretty much the key idea that leads to storms is warm air advection, warm air moving in, and positive vorticity, that hurricane-like turning of winds. And as I'm about to show you, both of those are lining up for this storm that's going to hit the Northeast. Right here, you can see this low down by West Virginia, 1,005 millibars. That's pretty weak. And that's actually the same as the one that's going to hit the Northeast on Tuesday, bringing some rainfall. Weak storm on Tuesday, never even breaks below 1,000. But something interesting is going to happen here. As we move forward, you see these winds starting to bring that warm Gulf air, now we're talking about the Gulf Stream. That's the warm current that goes up the East Coast. Well, think about what these winds are doing. The air right here, as you can see over the ocean, it's extremely warm compared with the cold continent. So that these winds, I hope you can see the streamlines, that's going to bring this warm air in, and that's going to lead to storm development, and it's going to lead to the strengthening of this low right here. So again, right here, 1,005. Watch as these winds continue to bring that warm air in. 1,005, 999, 997, 995, 989, 983. And again, it all has to do with this warm air moving in because of the winds around this low. It has to do with the counterclockwise rotation. On the left side of the low, it's bringing that cold air down, which is necessary for snowfall. On the right side, it's bringing that warm air in, which develops the storm. It's pretty cool to look at, especially this map. You can see those winds really start kicking up on about Thursday afternoon into Thursday night. And 983 is a low. Like, if this actually hits like this, that's going to be a strong storm. And again, as I said at the beginning of this video, the models have been tending to put this low too far north. And then as the models progress and get better, the low has been moving south. That's happened in the last 3 storms that have happened. So if this low can move, this can move off the coast. This could be maybe over 3 feet of snow for the Northeast, because then that warm air is really going to start moving in. And you get what is called Sutcliffe-Peterson self-development, but I won't go into that in this video. That's too much. Maybe I'll make a whole video just explaining that, because it basically explains the most extreme nor'easters that we ever see. So the first aspect, warm air advection, check. That's going to happen with this one, as that wind brings in the warm air from the warm Gulf Stream. The second aspect that leads to storm development is vorticity. Again, the curling of the winds in a hurricane-like rotation. As you can see here, Northeast, basically the entire eastern portion of the country, not much going on in the way of vorticity, and that's why this weekend there's not going to be a lot happening. That's why I'm doing a storm story type video versus a weekend forecast, because, well, this weekend's just not very exciting. This storm, however, is kind of exciting. So there you see that low off Southern California, and look at those purples. That indicates strong positive vorticity. And it makes sense because you see how close those isobars are right there. Well, let's take a look as this moves through. Remember, that low moves through Texas. It does pick up some moisture from the Gulf Stream, and then it goes and hits the Northeast on Tuesday. That's it right there. You see not much vorticity. It's maybe oranges in the best places, but not a lot going on. The one we want to see is this trough right here. And remember the thing about the close isobars on the left side of the trough. Well, look at all that positive vorticity building up, and then as we move forward, you see it move down into the axis of the trough, and then picks up that warm, moist air from the Gulf of Mexico, and you really start to see the vorticity kick in as that moisture brings in that energy. And once it's bringing it in from the Gulf Stream, this storm really starts kicking up. So right here, this is early Thursday morning, and that is a strong band of positive vorticity. Again, that just means storm development. Rising motion makes clouds with the moisture, rain and snow. And right there, you can see it really hit. That is Thursday at 7 a.m. And then it moves through the Northeast. So positive vorticity, the second part of storm development, check. Let's take a close-in look at what this is going to look like. You see Wednesday night, Thursday morning, not much going on in the Northeast. It's basically free of any vorticity whatsoever. And then Thursday at 1 in the morning, you see those purples and even blues. That is about as strong as you're ever going to see right there. That moves in. So as that moves in, you see rising motion, storm development. And especially along the coastline where it's really bringing in that warm air and energy. So that's going to move off, and this storm is looking pretty good. You got the warm air and you got the vorticity. Now let's check out the timing and the rates. This is going to be more like a typical forecast video. So with that low that moves through on Tuesday, look at it, it's pretty weak. Doesn't break 1,000, it's 1,006. There's going to be weak snowfall rates up north of Pennsylvania. Basically rain throughout the entire region. Maybe some snow for Vermont and New Hampshire on Wednesday morning. But again, the rates are pretty low with this one, and it's because this low is just too high. And that's going to move off, maybe bringing half an inch of snow to Vermont and New Hampshire, maybe parts of Maine. The big one, the one we've been talking about, that's going to start moving through early Thursday morning. Again, this is Thursday at 1 a.m. and you see that low has strengthened and it's sitting right over the western part of Pennsylvania. On the right side, think about this. That warm air is moving in, so the temperatures are going to be pretty warm. That's why at first all this precip is moving in the form of rain, because you got that warm air moving in. And then on the left side, think about the rotation, counterclockwise, it's bringing that cold air down. So western parts of Pennsylvania at this point, you're getting pretty intense snowfall rates. And the low is 987. That is low. And as we see it move, 982, that's the lowest we've seen in this video. Right now, these heavy rates are mostly isolated up to the north of the Northeast. You see, that's over 0.3 inches per hour of snow. But again, my prediction, this low is going to move south, and as it does, those high snowfall rates are going to move south as well. So that moves off. That one is gone by Friday morning. Let's take a look at the totals possible with this one again. Again, northwest Pennsylvania, very western New York. You could be getting over a foot of snow with this one. The real bullseye of this, though, is right north of New York. But if this can move down here, it's going to get even more of that warm air, and that 1 foot could turn into 2, maybe 3 feet of snow. And you can quote me on it. I'm predicting this will happen. I will keep you guys updated throughout the week as the forecasts get better for this storm. And I hope you enjoyed this video and were able to learn something. I'm going to probably start doing more videos like this in the future because honestly they're more fun for me to make because I can really dive into the science, which is really the thing I'm interested in. Hopefully you are too. If you are, you can subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.